Hey everyone, Kristen from Maybe Better Wanna Knits here today with a quick tutorial on magic loop. So last week when I was doing the video on sock knitting, I tried to link to a tutorial on magic loop and I couldn't find one because it turns out I hadn't done one. I had done a video tutorial, so today I had done a photo tutorial. So today we're going to do a video tutorial on magic loop. Please appreciate my peeling manicure. Magic loop is a technique for knitting small circumferences on a very long, but only one, circular needle. So for a long time, the smallest circumference circular needle was 16 inches. Now they have some smaller sizes around 9 inches, but if you wanted to knit a small circumference like a sock, you had to use double point needles. However, there is a technique for knitting a small circumference without using DPMs and without buying lots of small circumference circular needles, and that is this, the magic loop. So for the magic loop, you need a long circular needle. This is maybe about 32 inches. That's a good start. As you practice this and get better at it, you can actually start using circulars that aren't quite so long, but it's good to start with a nice long one. So to get started on this, you're going to cast on whatever number of stitches it is, just like you would if you were knitting flat. So I'm going to cast on, let's say 20 stitches. Okay, I've got my 20 stitches, and now what I'm going to do is slide all of them to the cable. Then I'm going to count half, so in this case 10, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, already kind of a gap there, that's helpful. And what you're going to do is kind of bend the cable and pull it through at that point, so that you have half the stitches on one side of the needle. Let's get that out of the way. So that now you have half the stitches on one side of the needle, half on the other, and the cable between. And so now you're going to start like you normally would knitting on a circular needle. You're going to push the stitches a little bit closer to the top. Okay, you've got your working yarn on the right. And what you're going to do at this point, you're going to have the stitches you're about to knit on your left-hand needle, put them close. You're going to pull the right-hand needle so that just that half of the stitches is on the cable, and you have enough flexibility here to use this needle to knit. So I'm going to insert my needle onto the left. You can see I've got all this extra cable here, which lets me maneuver that needle so that I can knit, and I'm going to knit those 10 stitches. The nice thing about the magic loop is that you don't really need stitch markers because it's always obvious where your beginning of the round is and where your halfway point is, which is very helpful for socks. All right, so I've knit my first 10 stitches. Now what? We're gonna pull the left-hand needle again so that the next set of stitches to be knit is going to be going up to the top of that left side of the needle. Okay, so down here is where I started, the beginning of the round. these are the stitches I just knit, and now I'm gonna do the same thing. I push the stitches on the left needle close to the top. I pull the right needle out, so I've got all this room. And now I'm gonna go ahead and knit the next 10 stitches, just like I would on a regular circular needle. One caveat about the magic loop. Because of the way you're kind of yanking the needles around, if you are using interchangeable needles, the tips tend to get loose. So you may need to go in and tighten them up on occasion. A lot of people who use magic loop for socks will just go ahead and buy a few dedicated pairs of long circular needles, usually 40-inch, in sock sizes to use. All right, we're back at the beginning of the round. Okay. So I'll move the stitches down to the cable so you can see them. Let's move this. And again, it's just like it was before. The cable is in between both halves of the stitches, and half of the stitches are on each side. So we'll do this one more time. Go ahead and pull the left side down so that the stitches are near the top. We'll get our tail out of the way. Then again, we'll pull that right needle out so we have room. And we'll knit the first 10 stitches. One thing with this technique is you do want to have a flexible cable. So for a long time, I preferred not to use Chow-Goos for magic loop because they're a little bit less flexible. They do still work though, and I do use them on occasion, but if you have something with a more flexible cable, like this is a plastic cable, I think from Knit Picks, that's usually a little bit more maneuverable. Okay, I knit the 10. Just gonna kind of maneuver the cable again. So you're always pulling your cable in between the two halves of your stitches. And this is why you want it to be long, because if your cable is not long enough, and this is very long for the few stitches I have here, but if your cable is not long enough to have a firm divide between your two sets of stitches, that can cause problems. If you have, you know, more than 20 stitches on your needle, the midpoint can start to get lost. All right, slide stitches on the left needle to the top, pull the right needle out, and here we go again. And that is basically it. You're just gonna keep moving your needles, put the stitches to be knit at the top of the left needle, and the stitches you've just knit down to the cable on the right-hand side, and then use that right-hand needle tip to knit from the left side. That's really all there is to it. You can use this for any small circumferences. I will avoid double point needles in any way that I can, so I use this all the time. Sweater sleeves, tops of hats, socks, definitely. Any kind of small circumference, you can use this technique. Like I said, if you do a lot of sock knitting, you want to use this for socks, you may consider getting some long sock size needles for that purpose, because it can loosen up interchangeables, but you don't have to. Just remember to go back in and tighten them occasionally. And this is a great way to avoid DPNs. With DPNs, you're spreading your needles over 3, maybe even 4 needles. That's a lot of different spots where you can get those ladders in between the needles. Here you're cutting it down to just one spot. This is a technique I love, and it really is, you know, the name Magic Loop really makes it sound more complicated than it is. It's not. You're just using a long needle and maneuvering them so that you are keeping one half, let's turn this over here, keeping one half of the stitches on either side of the cable, and then using the right hand needle to do the knitting. That is really it. Now I do have finally a Magic Loop tutorial. I hope you found this helpful. Happy knitting!